Today on Cinema and Cocktails, prepare to have your head hurt as we take a dive into the multiverse and ask a bunch of philosophical questions. Do we exist in parallel timelines? Is this life just a simulation? The answer may be found in the film The Mandela Effect. And if you had a chance to change the future, would you do it? The film Enter Nowhere examines that possibility and the ramifications. And lastly, if you could change timelines and live a new life with new results but be the same person, would you do it? The answer to that question can be found in the film Coherence. Alcohol will be needed for all three of these, so let's mix them, drink them, and watch these flicks. A man becomes obsessed with facts or events that have been misremembered by thousands, possibly even millions of people. And he kind of believes that this phenomenon may be symptom of something even greater than he can possibly conceptualize or fathom, which ultimately leads him to questioning reality itself. What the hell am I talking about? Man, so the Mandela Effect. When I first saw it on one of the tiles, and I was going through some Amazon films, I was kind of interested in it. And so I did a little bit of research on it. And I will say this, there are some interesting peculiarities. Is that correct? Peculiarities? Did I say that right? Peculiarities. Yes, there we go. There are some interesting peculiarities that kind of pop up in this movie that had me even questioning things. Like, for instance, like one of the things that the character brings up is the Berenstain Bears. Now, I remember reading the Berenstain Bears as a kid. I think most of us who are of a certain generational age, clears throat, that you remember reading the Berenstain Bears. And you remember it was Steen, right? Not Stain. It was Steen. Stein. But for some reason in the movie, or if you look it up online, it says Berenstain, Stain. That threw me off. When you think about Looney Tunes, right? You think of Looney Tunes like Toons, not Tunes. Or the Monopoly guy. When he's on the front cover, he always had that little eyeglass thing they called a monocle. And now he doesn't. And it did make you question, like, what? Where did that stuff go? Or did you just not remember it correctly? And it was kind of unnerving. And you'll understand what I'm talking about when you watch the movie, because it's a wild concept that does have you actually wondering about this reality versus another reality versus another reality. So let's look at the characters and let's get into this thing. Charlie Hoffheimer plays Brendan, who has about 53 credits to his name. Lots of television. He was in Mad Men, 24 Legacy. He was also in that sadistic film, Would You Rather? I don't know how many of you all ever saw that. It was on like Netflix. It might even still be on Netflix. But man, just a bunch of people get invited to some random dinner party, and there's this dude who makes them do all these really weird things. And it's always like, would you rather do this? Or would you rather do that? And I think either they earn money or something. I got through like the first 5 minutes of it, and I was like, okay, I don't have time for this. He was also in Black Hawk Down, and he was in M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Alaska Palladino, she plays Claire. She's got a good solid 42 credits to her name. She made her appearances on The Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire. She had a small but interestingly significant role. Significant role in the movie Before the Devil Knows You're Dead and The Irishman. Right? Again, great movies with great actors in them. So she definitely has some chops to her. Robin Lord Taylor plays Matt. 35 credits. Again, lots of television. He's in Gotham. He was in that TV series called You. I don't know if anybody saw You. That's on Netflix. The one about that dude who's like, it's kind of like a stalker of women. Man, I got through. Season 1 was pretty good. I don't know about season 2, but season 1 was actually not bad. It stayed within the realm of convincing impossibilities. Aristotle. See, Aristotle. Now, he was in John Wick 3, and he was in another movie called Accepted Earth. But, let's go ahead and move on. Probably the biggest get of this movie was played by Clark. The biggest get, when I mean get, I mean the production staff and the director was able to get this actor. The biggest get is Clark Peters. Who's Clark Peters? Clark Peters? Come on, he plays Dr. Fuchs, 104 credits. He was in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. You might know that one. He was in John Wick. Harriet. Damages. Oh, I know. You probably recognize him from being in The Five Bloods. Oh, he was one of the black guys in The Five Bloods? Yes, he was one of the black guys in The Five Bloods. But you probably would definitely remember him as Detective Lester Freeman on The Wire. Yes, Lester Freeman. That is Clark Peters. Fantastic actor. So I'll just leave it at that. Now, as far as the main characters in this movie, it's pretty much the main characters in the film are Brendan and Claire. Even though Clark Peters, Dr. Fuchs, he had an important role, it really wasn't his journey. The journey that's undertaken in this movie revolves around Brendan and Claire. Now, Brendan is suffering with the loss of his child, okay? And it's very difficult for him to move on, and he's just not ready to let his daughter go. And, the pain and the suffering has caused him to start buying into these alternate realities and these different things and lifestyles. And you're not quite sure if he's holding on to them because he feels the pain or if he's actually trying to kind of like resurrect her in a weird, I guess you could say, bizarre kind of fashion. He slips in and out of these like obsessive modes of madness. And by the end of the film, it's kind of hard to say if he's actually a different person. To me, I thought he was obsessed at the beginning of the movie, and he's kind of pretends to be that way throughout the film. So I don't think there's much change in him or in his arc. I think he kind of goes through what he needs to go through, but it's the change is negligible. Now, Claire, she's a little bit more grounded. That's his wife, and so she's also dealing with that same loss, but she's kind of more accepting of things as the way they are. And when Brendan starts peddling his strange ideas, she kind of pushes back. But over the course of the film, she slowly begins to kind of not necessarily buy into his foolishness, but she's kind of tolerating and putting up with it. And while she's still grieving, she still wants to move on to life. But by the film's end, you're not quite sure if she's actually bought into Brendan's ideas or if she is a different Claire or if he's a different Brendan. I mean, the film weaves some interesting scientific ideas regarding multiple timelines, and once you watch it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Now, the dialogue in the movie I thought was very, very believable. Okay, I think that's an important aspect when you get a film like this. You have to be able to follow what the characters are talking about, and I found myself really enjoying the ideas that were being discussed and debated throughout the film. So when Brendan's talking to Dr. Fuchs and they're spitting out all this quantum physics stuff, man, there were a couple of times I had to pause the film and get on the internet and look this stuff up. Like, what the hell are they talking about? So for me, it was an interesting walk, okay, learning about some stuff that I just had not learned before. And if you do conversations right, and if the subject matter is intense enough, man, it can be as exciting as a gunfight or a car chase, especially when you're learning about something new. So these two characters really did a good job of explaining things, and it was enjoyable, listening and learning how a screenwriter can convey new ideas and concepts to you through just simple conversation. As far as the conflicts goes, okay, this kind of really kind of outlays the film. The external conflict that Brendan is really trying to overcome is similar to what Neo was looking for in The Matrix. Huh? He's trying to find some massive computer? Kind of. Is that computer running a simulation? Kind of. There is a little bit of an interesting kind of parallel between the two. But the difference was in this one is that Brendan is just, he's more about the discovery. Can we stop it? Can we change it? And it haunts him strangely enough that it haunts him in a way that he thinks he can actually do something about it. But the real question is why? Why do you want to change a simulation? Even if it exists, like, why not just let it be alone? Like, most of us are walking through this life right now and we're good. I mean, there's probably a few things that you might want to change about your life right now. I know there's a few things I might want to change, but that's a whole other discussion over some drinks. But it's interesting, okay, that he's, wants to change things. But what's wrong with staying in the universe upon which you currently live? Like, why leave? Now, internally, I think Brendan is trying to get over the loss of his daughter. Okay. And strangely enough, it's kind of implied that if he can solve his external problem, it might help him with his internal problem. But I don't know if he even believes that makes any kind of sense. Or is this all just happening in his mind? Is it possible that he created an alternate reality with with a psychological schism in his brain, just to deal with the grief? I mean, there's a lot happening here. A lot happening in a very, very short amount of time. Now, as far as the plot type, I kind of thought this was a kind of like a golden fleece, like going on a journey. And on Brendan's journey, he begins chasing down this idea of an alternate parallel universe. And the way he goes about it, I thought personally that it was a distraction, which was actually trying to help him to grieve, because each move that he makes on this journey doesn't bring him any closer towards his daughter. It just takes him further away from the pain. So he's throwing himself into this unsolvable equation of trying to figure out what the matrix is, or is there even a matrix that's out there? And I think it's helping to ease his mind. And I guess but what's interesting is, though, what comes of the decisions that he makes along this journey, it does have an impact on him by the time the film ends. And thematically, this is where I think the whole journey comes into play. It's about loss. I thought this movie dealt with grief, overcoming pain, and how a couple is having to deal with the unimaginable pain of trying to get past the death of a child. I also thought that this film also kind of delved into the idea or conceptualization of searching for the unknown. To me, everyone wakes up every day looking for something. Like, that's what drives us. That's what gets us out of the bed. That's what pushes us through our day, trying to figure out why we're here or what our purpose is. Now, some of us have already answered that question, but others of us do find ourselves sitting alone at a bar or on our couch or at a kitchen table with a glass of water or whatever it is that you're drinking, and you start wondering, like, what is this all about? Like, why am I here? The structure of the film flows through a very, very succinct 88 minutes. I wish it would have been a little bit longer, but what are you going to do? In the first act, Brendan and Claire lose a daughter. In the second act, Brendan kind of discovers or becomes aware of the Mandela effect. About midway through the movie, he tries to prove this Mandela effect or this idea. And by the third, he actually has a chance to kind of alter or possibly even affect his reality. And the question is, does he do it, or does he kind of leave things to be the same? Now, this film was directed by David Guy Levy, and it was also written by David Guy Levy, another guy named Steven Schwaltenhofen. Okay. Now, he's done a few films, but most of them have just been kind of short. So I think his the first real feature film for him was The Mandela Effect. And that's not because he's not a good director, but it's because he spends most of his time as a producer. So when it comes time to putting a film like this together, I thought the ambient music gave the film kind of a very sterile kind of computer sci-fi feeling to it. And while I thought the performances were solid, I don't know, man. As much as I enjoyed the concept, I was never really totally pulled into the experience. The images of the pain and the frustration juxtaposed against the moments of sadness were very well done, I thought. And I thought the editing and the pacing of the film moved just a little bit too fast. I mean, there were some moments where I wish they would have done a little bit more explaining, but then it would have turned into like a science egghead kind of movie. So what are you going to do? The CGI, a little bit inexpensive, because they say, I guess it must have been too expensive for what he really wanted to do, because they kind of saved all the special effects for like the last part of the movie for its climactic ending, which was pretty cool, by the way. I thought it was kind of neat, but it was kind of neat how you're watching the film and everything's kind of going along, and all of a sudden the end, it turns into this like sci-fi mashup of all these weird special effects. But it was well done, I thought. What worked in this movie? Great concept. Man, the Mandela effect will have you looking up stuff or thinking about things that either you've misremembered or people you know have misremembered. What didn't work was it was just way too short. The characters all seemed to be just kind of two-dimensional, and there definitely were a few plot holes. It was rated R because there definitely was some cursing, and there was a kind of a slight, small sex scene. Nothing great. And as far as the unconvincing possibilities, hey, it's a science fiction movie. You have to suspend your